Last week I shared about our arrival in Holland and some of the training we experienced. Today you'll hear about our first border crossing into communist East Europe. How is God going to work this out? We had heard of other teams who had been caught, detained, and threatened. Actually, a team of two older ladies had been stopped at the border that we were going to be using. Their vehicle was searched. A border guard was suspicious, so he took a drill with a long bit and drilled into a part of the camper's ceiling. When he pulled the drill bit out, there was paper stuck on the drill bit. So the border guards destroyed the camper, taking it apart and finding the hidden Bibles. The ladies were detained for a while before finally being released. For us, the first checkpoint on the West German side was non-eventful. Just a quick look at our passports and we were on our way. I was in the passenger seat while one of the ladies drove. I happened to glance back to see how my wife and the other teammate were doing. And then I noticed one of our secret compartments in the floor had buckled. I told our driver we were in the middle of no man's land between West Germany and East Germany. She pulled off to the side of the road. My wife and the other girl grabbed some toilet paper, jumped out of the camper, and headed into the woods. We knew the border guards in the guard towers would be watching them. My other teammate and I were working quickly, trying to fix the floor panel. I was sweating in spite of the cool morning. We finally got the floorboard pressed into place and sealed. About this time, the other two girls got back to the camper and we continued to the guard station. One guard took our passports, another slid a large mirror underneath the vehicle looking for secret compartments. Another guard was entering the back door of our camper to check the inside. As he opened the back door, the morning light shined through the door right on the floor of the camper. I saw that the compartment covering Bibles had buckled again. I nonchalantly turned back around and began to pray. The guard came into the back of the camper. He was more interested in the compartments where we kept our food and other supplies. He walked right over the buckled floorboard. Oh, was I praying. After he completed his inspection, he gave us our passports and told us we could leave. To me, it was an incredible miracle. When we were far away from the border, I told the ladies to take a look at the floor. They were stunned. We all began to praise and thank the Lord for working a great wonder. Another interesting little tidbit. We were told in our training to never take pictures at the border. If we were caught and our cameras confiscated, we could be accused as spies because of the border pictures. When we had returned to the States, I was going through our slides and pictures for a church presentation. I noticed a couple of pictures of the East German border crossing. I asked my wife about it. She said she wasn't aware of the no picture taking at border crossings. We realized she had not been on that part of the briefing. She had to stay back at the house because she wasn't feeling well that day. The Lord really protects us. The rest of the drive through East Germany was uneventful. We found a hotel near the border that would take us into Poland. We had a very comfortable room, a good supper that night, and a good breakfast the next morning. I wondered, what was the Lord going to do today as we crossed into Poland? As usual, we had team prayer before we started off. The excitement over what the Lord had done the day before was still with us. So it was early in the morning as we left our hotel and headed for the East German border with Poland. It didn't take long to get through the East German border. We drove slowly to the Polish side, behind a number of cars and trucks despite the early hour. Our passports were again taken while the outside of our vehicle was inspected. Then one of the guards came into the camper and began to look around. He started to open up some of our cabinets and cupboards. to look around. As he started to open up another door, the knob came off in his hand. He got rattled and nervous, thinking he had damaged our camper without good cause. He quickly handed the knob to one of the ladies and said, "Inspection over. You may leave." Again, the Lord worked in a simple way in order to get us through this border crossing. With our passports in hand and thanksgiving in our hearts, we entered Poland on our way to our first contacts. We had a number of meetings with pastors and groups that were scattered throughout the country. Most of our days and many evenings would be spent driving. As tourists, we were required to spend a set amount of money each day for each traveler. This was challenging because outside of fuel and food, there was little we would want to purchase. We would be required to show receipts for our purchases when we left the country to show how much money we spent. We made an effort to eat at some fine restaurants in order to meet the spending limits. The campgrounds we stayed in were not overly expensive. We had brought a lot of our own food, so the restaurants were our best outlet for spending the required money. We found out quickly that our oversized camper was an unusual sight in Poland. It was challenging driving through some towns and villages. People on the streets would stop what they were doing to stare at us as we drove by. In the larger cities, if we were stopped at a stoplight, people would come over, get on the running boards to look inside to see the inside of the camper and the people that were in it. It could be unnerving because we didn't really want to attract a great deal of attention like this. You never know when a local policeman would approach and want to investigate more. We enjoyed staying in the campgrounds. We were also grateful we didn't have to sleep in tents. The bathroom facilities were primitive. The first place we stayed in had squat pots instead of Western toilets. My wife was not pleased with this. She had never used one before. But it's all a learning experience. In some places, we would rent a car to haul Bibles and books so we wouldn't have to use the camper because of the attention it drew. One thing that stood out: we were told in our briefing to be especially on the lookout while driving at night in Poland. Many people drank alcohol, would get inebriated, and stumble along the roads. This turned out to be so true. We had many chances to avoid people who would stagger and fall, some even on the road near our vehicle. It was very nerve-wracking. Railroad crossings were another challenge. They had gates that would come down to block the road along with the clanging signal. These crossings were set up on a time schedule. We could come to a crossing with no train, the gate would be down, so we would have to wait until the train passed. Sometimes we would have to wait for more than half an hour before the train actually showed up. For us Americans, it was a real time waster. I have to say that we have a miracle working God. Next week, you will hear about our first pastor contacts behind the Iron Curtain. If you are blessed by these podcasts, please push the thumbs up and the share buttons below. So, until next week, thanks for listening.